I've always been a curious person. I remember growing up, I spent countless time on forums, reading horror stories and browsing posts about paranormal activities copiously. And there's one picture I still remember vividly to this day. It was a wedding photo with the chilling backstory. And for a moment, the picture's unsettling description had earned my absolute credulity. I guess I never questioned the legitimacy of the story. I just buried it in the back of my head. But recently I had a memory echo. I know, some people reminiscing the good old days, me remembering a horrifying wedding picture. The fuck is that? Right? But before we elbow deep in and analyze this picture, let's delve into this topic. The tapestry of Chinese ghost marriage. The Chinese ghost marriage is also known as Minghuan or Yinghuan. 2 words, same shit. It is a practice where one or both participants in marriage are deceased. Ghost marriage is a unique cultural tradition rooted in the Chinese beliefs about family, ancestor worshipping, and this practice is meant to maintain familial lineage, fulfill social obligation, and ensure that the deceased will have companionship in their afterlife. Just a clarification, the ghost marriage in China is very rare now. Even back in the days, it was considered superstitious, problematic, a corrupt custom, and it was only practiced in some rural areas among the Chinese communities, and it is completely rotted out of the modern society. And a lot of us, including myself, we had to access the information through the internet, media, or movies because none of us nor our families had a first-hand experience. And this is also one of the toxic cultural practices that needs to be eradicated. A long time ago, there were people with this uneducated belief that being unmarried at the time of death was considered a misfortune, as marriage was seen as a significant rite of passage. When someone is married, they will be seen as they fulfill their duties and responsibilities as a kid to the parent, and being single was stigmatized, let alone dying unmarried. It was considered a sully to the whole family, including the ancestors. It was a generational shame and bad luck. It was a disgrace to the ancestral grave. Marrying off a deceased person helps preserve the family's honor. So that's why a lot of people confide into the ghost marriage to ensure that the deceased will complete their life milestone. Now, we're all familiar with the yin-yang symbol, right? It is an opposite but interconnected self-perpetuating cycle. And there was a belief when an unmarried kid passed away, it breaks the harmony of feng shui. Is it me or I lost my voice? 我怎么越讲越哑了? So, performing a ghost marriage to pair with the deceased one, as known as the yin, with a spouse, it's a yang. So bounding these two together, it will maintain the cosmic balance. Some people believe if the death occurred by accidents, murders, or losing life at a very young age without completing life milestones, the deceased will be restless, lonely, holding grudges. They will linger in this human realm and return as a spirit to haunt the living. And back in the days, ghost marriages are not for the poor. Rich people had to go through an agent, a matchmaker, to get the perfect body. I know, that sounds so fucked up. It is fucked up though. In the past, many people believed that a couple should be well matched in social and economic status for happy marriage. So conducting a ghost marriage could also strengthen ties between two families, even after death. Because here's the thing, money, power, respect are the holy trinity to keep the familial lineage go on and on and on and on and on and on. So first, a family might consult with a feng shui master or a spiritual medium to find a suitable body. You know what? A spouse. Yeah, that's better. To find a suitable spouse for the deceased. And a lot of people believed in this thing called a birth chart. In Chinese, we call them 生辰八字, 4 pairs of characters, including the year, month, day, and hours of one person's birth. And to complicate the situation even further, some families are very adamant about the Chinese zodiac sign. For instance, if their kid's zodiac sign is a rooster, they tend to stay away from a rabbit or a dog because according to the Chinese zodiac sign, a rabbit, in Chinese we also call it Mao, is located on the west, and a rooster, in Chinese we call it You, is located on the east. So the binding of two could bring misfortune to the family. Fascinating. But is it true though? I don't know. I guess it's the same as the astrology sign. Because you know how some people, they just have their own stereotype towards certain signs. Oh, I don't like Scorpio. Oh, I don't like Virgo, blah, blah, blah. It's the same shit. Then it's the dowry. In the traditional marriage, a dowry is required from both parties. Back in the days, it was expected that the bride would receive compensations like money, gold, gems, silk, expensive Chinese medicines, and so on, as if right now, I guess the dowry had transitioned into a party has to have their own real estate, preferably, but if not, it is expected for them to pay for the down payment of the mortgage, and the other family might pitch in with the god renovation. So basically, one family has to match with another family's offer. I know it sounds very materialistic, but also very realistic. Because here's the thing, when you get married, you're not just getting married. It's not as easy as getting that certificate. You're starting your own family. You're creating one yourself. I guess the dowry can be seen as a blessing from the parents. Next, we have the ceremony. The ghost marriage ceremony often mirrors a traditional wedding, but with some symbolic adjustments though. For example, the paper effigies, the paper figures representing the groom, the bride, and the dowries are burned during the ceremony to send them to the afterlife. So basically, it's a currency because there's a belief in the Chinese culture. I think it's funny. It's called 买路钱. So a lot of people believed that doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter if you're alive or dead, it doesn't matter where you go, you always need to have money in the back of your pocket just in case. So the paper figures are just the currency for you to live in another realm. The color themes on the bride and the groom are red and white instead of red and gold. And when I said white, I'm not talking about the wedding dresses that people wear nowadays. I was talking about white flower pieces like white chrysanthemum because they're used to honor the dead according to the Chinese culture. And speaking of flower pieces, this is such an interesting cultural difference. In the Korean and Japanese culture, let's just say hypothetically, if somebody opens up a restaurant or other establishments, or if they're having a graduation ceremony, their friends will send flower wreath to offer congratulations. I'm not talking about those decorative ones or the ornaments. I'm talking about the big ones because flower wreaths are exclusively for the deceased in China. Under no circumstances that one should ever send flower wreath to others, unless you're sending it to a cheating ex. That's another thing. Isn't that interesting? So in China, it is preferably to just give flower baskets, bouquets, or flower arrangements instead of flower wreath. But I digress. Now let's talk about strings and wood. A lot of times, strings and wood will be used on the deceased because here's the thing. Their bodies are stiff, okay? They're not as bendable as living bodies, and throughout the decomposing stage, bones become brittle. It is very hard to maneuver, and without a steady fundamental support, cadavers collapse. Now it's time to review the picture. This is the picture I was talking about. And show off your hands. How many of you have seen this picture before? Because this photo was all over the internet. Blogs, forums, with a bone-chilling backstory. When you take a first glance at the picture, it seems alright. A little bit off, probably due to the wedding clothes that they were wearing. Because we don't see people wear that shit nowadays. But that is what people wore back in the days. So it's understandable, right? So what could possibly go wrong? Just wait for the description. I'm gonna read it for you. This photo was taken in 1922. That 17-year-old bride, her name is Ye Zimei. She's the daughter of a rich landowner. That 19-year-old groom, whose name is Wang Haide. They've been engaged for a year, and the girl passed away due to an epidemic disease. He didn't want to follow the custom and marrying a dead person, so he ran off and joined the military. But the girl's family hunted him down. This picture was taken around the twilight hours, and she had been dead for 6 days. One of her hands fell off. Her eyes were looking upward and bleeding simultaneously. Her back was upheld by wood, and her feet were levitating from the ground. Yeah. This is just one of the versions, and there's another version saying she hung herself to death. That's why she was looking upward and bleeding at the same time. And you know what the most fucked up part is? When I first saw this picture, it was in black and white, which made it even worse. Now you understand why was this picture so phenomenally unsettling back then. Was that really the question? I guess the real question here is, are the picture and story legit? Nay, nay. Yeah. 아니. According to a netizen, she claimed herself was the great-great-granddaughter. Yeah, that sounds about right. Of the groom in the picture, and that bride was the first wife. And there's probably one thing that the netizens got it right. She was in fact the daughter of a rich landowner. Now some of you are probably wondering, how did this picture get out then? Well, let's go back to 2000. A relative of the family took this photo and submitted it to an antique photo exhibition without the consent of the family. And for some inexplicable reason, this picture ended up being on the cover of a magazine. That's where all the exposures are coming from. And people were just spinning the yarn due to the age of the photo, the discoloration, and plus the bride had full binding on. Netizens just went off. As far as the bride's facial expression is concerned, here are my thoughts. This picture was probably taken 100 years ago, and that was probably the first day somebody introduced this thing called camera to her. Do you remember the first day, the first time when you saw camera, or the first time when somebody snapped a picture of you? Weren't you nervous? There was, back in the days, there was no Photoshop. There was no Canon G7X Mark II, Sony ZV-1, or DJI Pocket 3. None of that shit. You don't get to take 100 pictures and pick and choose which one you want to keep. There's probably only one chance. And when the flashlight went off, somebody snapped the picture, she just flinched. She looked up. And it just caught her off guard. And that, my friend, is the story of this photo and the history of the Chinese ghost marriage. Aww. I like debunking things. It feels like I'm solving a mystery. But I would still like to hear your thoughts about the Chinese ghost marriage and this photo. Let me know in the comments. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching today's video. And if you have any... Damn, I forgot. What should I say? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.